Jon Eesley, welcome to Succession Stories. I'm so excited to be with you today.
Yes, great to be here.
You and I met afar. You're in Columbus, Ohio. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our football teams divide us, but that's okay. We have a lot of things in common. And one of the things is a passion for privately held companies, multi-generational companies. We're going to have a great conversation from the heart. And let's dive in. Why don't you share a bit about your background and what got us to meeting each other and having this conversation today?
Yeah, the background, the key there is, as a young person, I go to college. I'm an accounting major. I graduate. I go into public accounting, and in hindsight, very fortunate in that I got tapped to be focused on entrepreneurial and privately owned businesses. And I ended up having a 27-year career at what's now known as KPMG. I'm old enough that it was Pete Marwick way back when. Um, but so most of my peers had an industry focus. One of my best friends did insurance. One of my other good friends did manufacturing. But mine wasn't the industry; it was the ownership and the link of business to owner. And like I said, I was there for 27 years, and that's a common thread and amazing. It was everything from tech startups in the 90s to fourth and fifth generation families. Heck, in the 80s, successful companies, a common source of growth capital back then was you go public. I had an entrepreneur take his company public when his top line revenue was $22 million. That would never happen today. Um, so some of my companies became publicly owned, but they were still often controlled by the family, and that was a major piece. So great career, a lot of neat things, but that industry changed, and I was there way too long after 27 years, anyways. And so, as I explored what was going to be my next career, honestly, I thought it was going to be to go be a leader for a family owned business. And I was exploring some. And in the midst of that, a good friend and mentor told me, you should work for the same people you've always worked with, but help them personally. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, like a personal CFO, you understand the business, you understand tax, you can bring it all together. It's what you were always good at, anyways. And I was like, I'm not sure what that is, but about 3 months later, I figured it out. And that's really what I've been doing since being for now 18 years. So today, for my first career, my so-called client was the business, but I learned the individuals as a part of that. Today, my clients are the individuals, and their business is a key asset to them. But what I do and what our firm does today is really we help people with complex financial lives. We help them organize it, manage it, and ultimately be strategic. And the questions are really simple. What do you have and what's it for? And Laurie, what's amazing is nobody has ever answered both questions. Um, it's amazing. I talk about business leaders, and they often know their business by the week, by the penny. They have a 3 to 5 year plan. Personally, they got millions. They really don't know where it is, and there's no plan. So, what I really enjoy is peeling and digging at purpose and what really are the goals. Um, and I joke because if I do it right, I say people come to sit at my desk, but they end up laying on my couch because we're going to get into really softer things about them, enjoyment, family, fears, a lot of that. And the people just aren't prepared for that discussion. Um, because often their advisors are legal and tax and those things. And I've said, look, if my job was only to do the financially optimal answer, my job's easy. But that's about a third of what we do. The magic is, can you bring it together and make it work for people, families, their passions, etc. So I could go on, but that's what I do, and I think that's part of how you and I then came to meet.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I share a lot of the same experiences with companies that struggle finding clarity around these somewhat seemingly innocent questions, right? The question of what's it for, 3 words, right? But yet so powerful. I want to ask you, how have you worked with clients to help them figure that out? And how do they figure that out? What are some of the answers you've heard?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'll hear often early on, I'll hear some early ones, like for instance, again, some anonymous stories. Hey, Jon, this is really easy. I want to make sure me and my spouse have enough to live on, which I think we do. And then upon my death, whatever can go to my children, estate tax free goes, and the rest goes to charity. I'm like, interesting. I said, so what if there's no estate tax when you pass? Does that mean all this goes to your children? Oh, well, maybe that's too much. Oh, too much. Is there something that's too little? I said, well, let's go the other way. Let's go none. What you've already given to your children is all that will go because anything else would be taxed. So you're saying nothing else would go to your children. This is a lot of money that would go to charity. Yep, that's how it's going to work. Do you think you'll have grandkids someday? Yeah, probably will. Do you think maybe one of them could be special needs? Oh, you mean like my partner? Yeah. How would that feel if no money went to support that grandchild and it all? Oh, maybe this isn't easy, is it? Like, no, it's not. So, but here's the good news. You're still alive. Let's think about it. Let's give it some thought. Let's challenge. And then you start peeling away at it. So try to use experiences, stories. I do bring objective, well organized information about them, their current situation, to ultimately support a very subjective, passionate, emotional discussion.
Emotional is a good word. And you also used the word fear earlier. What are the common fears people have when you start to raise the questions around the finances?
Yeah. So again, I'm fortunate. I really work with people again with complicated financial lives, and it usually means that there's more than enough because all of us have goal number one is lifelong financial security. And again, nobody's been prepared for, well, what if you have more than enough for that? Um, and so the emotions that come into that, clearly fear number one is, are we going to run out of money? So most of my clients, pretty easy to get them past that. A big fear they have is they don't, because I primarily work with the wealth creators, not the wealth inheritors. Wealth creators appreciate kind of the business approach that we take to them in their lives. Um, so one of the big fears is I don't want this wealth to ruin my children or my grandchildren, but yet I I'm a parent and I want this wealth to be there at least as a safety net. So how do I blend those things? Um, that's a big one around the money. If it's around the business, and this is what you were just touching on in an earlier presentation, was just how defining somebody's role in their business is to their emotional well-being in life and society. And quote, selling the business might be a great financial outcome, but they personally are not in a good place. And that emotion is very integral to talk about what's right for them. Transition is a story or a word that I get a lot. Again, simple words, right? And I had a business owner who's like, we need to talk about transition. And I just looked at him and I said, are we talking about transition of you managing the business or transition of you owning the business? And he paused for a really long time. He's like, there's a difference in there. I said, yeah. Often I see folks that are tired of managing the business, but and you and I see this a lot, right? They probably don't have as strong a management team and they haven't built that as good as they should. If they have, I've had some situations where I was the only advisor saying, keep the business. You enjoy owning it. You have a great management team. Yeah, financially, are you getting valuations we might never see again? Sure. What are you going to do with that money? You don't even know what to do with the money you have now. So enjoy it. It's fulfilling to you. So again, people like, Jon, you're an accountant. What are you dealing with all these emotional terms? But it is for me, the personal rewards for me are or when you can find um, just where it all comes together, and you really are touching people's their emotion, their purpose, fulfillment in life. That's really cool. It's hard to get there, but you'll never get there if you don't acknowledge it and work on it.
One of
And
the things that I totally agree with you, and one of the things also that can help ground us is our core values.
yeah,
Tell me about the conversations with folks about core values. Do you find that companies have them written down and they're very clear, or do you find that they're non-existent?
all across the board. Yeah, it's probably a third nothing, a third do a really good job of it, and a third are trying. Um, but now take this, Laurie. How many you think have it for them personally or for their families?
Not many.
Yeah, I mean, now we help clients get there. So let's help establish values as parents for your children, how to think about this wealth. Um, so that's a big undertaking that we are doing. We probably have two families right now. We have another we're going to meet next week. Of take a step back and establish those for yourself and for your family. What's interesting is often the children have seen mom and dad and all the sacrifices they made, and the children can remember maybe not having a lot of money, etc. It is the grandchildren that only know, well, grandpa's always had this private jet, or grandpa's had this home out in Montana. I mean, it's like there's always, and that's where it can really start to break down and disintegrate. So having having those values, and the families that have done it well are the ones that work on it. They engage outsiders, they commit time and effort, they communicate about it, and if you do, you can get there. But it doesn't just drop out of the sky. You can't just read a book and say, okay, I got it.
I
So
love this conversation, Jon, because it's spotlighting something so critical, and I do talk about this thematically on the show all the time, that there are three fundamental pillars to our planning for future transition: personal, financial, and business. So just to kind of take that step back, what you and I are talking about in its core is financial. Absolutely, right? You're a numbers guy,
right.
you talked about your background, and you're coming at it from the money questions first, which makes a ton of sense. But what I also like about how you're thinking and how you work with clients, totally on the same page as me, is let's bring the heart into this,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah.
isn't just about the calculator. And when you talk to clients, especially in the example where they had an offer on the table and they walked away from it, can you share a little bit more about that? Why it wasn't just about the money for them and why they walked away?
It really, this is an individual. This was the business he created. I mean, he talked about in the early years how barely having literally dinner was a butter sandwich. He goes, you know what a butter sandwich is? This piece of bread, butter, piece of bread. That was dinner, a glass of milk. That's all we had. And today, just this incredible business, more than enough money. But it's his thing. It's his thing in the community. He's known that way. He interacts with others. I have another client, and sold his business and took some of the proceeds, and I won't say exactly what he bought because then people, at least in my community, can figure it out. But let's say bought a business that was very social and had members that would come join, et cetera, put his office out there. And it's just a great thing for him that it gives him purpose, a place to go, social interaction. It's something he enjoys. It's a beautiful setting. I'm like, this is great. And it's so funny. He always puts his business hat on. It's like, yeah, we're just break even. And I'm like, that's fine. It's this is like the best setup of about anybody I've got, because to think you get a big pot of money and you go to Florida or Arizona, those folks aren't happy. It's got to be more than that.
It
So
has to be more
yeah,
than that. I think I heard a quote that Dan Sullivan had shared, so this is probably not an accurate quote, but that when you say you're going to retire, you're sending an email to the universe that you're ready to die. Something like that. And it made me laugh, and it just made you laugh. So we can all chuckle about it. But let's think about what we're really saying here. And probably the message is, look, there's no one way to exit. There's no one way to transition your company. And what you decide to do and your role that you're going to play in the company, outside the company, is up to you. We want you to think about it. We want you to have a plan,
Right.
because on the day of the transaction is too late to start thinking about it. And if you're in the scenario that we had just talked about a moment ago, which is, I'm not going to sell, I want to maintain ownership, but I'm going to step back. Well, let's also be purposeful about what you need to support you in that decision.
Yeah.
So Jon, as we wind down this conversation today, there's so many golden nuggets that you shared. What are the top few that you want to just reiterate to our listeners so that they can take action on?
Um, let's hit a couple. One, if you're selling the business, I'm going to ask the question, not how much can you get, how much do you need? So again, back to you personally, and not just financial, but also roles, responsibilities, what's fulfilling in life. I really, I've said fulfillment 3 or 4 times. That is, I used to think it was happiness. Happiness isn't the right word. I think it is fulfilling, and I really challenge myself. Look at all that you've created. How is this fulfilling to you and your family? And often that once you get beyond, hey, I've got enough for lifelong financial security, the rest of that I call impact wealth. You can impact the way you live. You can impact the way other people live. Typically, that's going to be family, but I'll tell clients, Laurie and I are glad you can impact Laurie and I's life if you want, but you can also impact your community. And I'm on a big kick right now that doesn't mean charitable. If everything is driven around tax and legal, most people go right to charity. I'm like, no, 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 no. You can impact your community through social investing, social entrepreneurs, and that is bubbling up. And with my younger business owners, that is becoming a bigger deal. Which maybe here's a kind of, you said drop the mic kind of thing. If you're thinking about selling your business, don't start with lawyers and accountants. If you are, you're already on the wrong track, in my opinion. So get back to higher level, get somebody to help you think about purpose, goals, outcomes, and then let the lawyers and accountants, sorry, all lawyers and accountants, I love y'all, but let them help you execute it in a way, but now it's goal driven execution as opposed to just back to your only one pillar driven. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That is a drop the mic. It's the head, the heart, and the calculator that we're
yeah.
trying to bring into this process. Jon, if people want to reach out to you, what's a good way to get in touch?
Yeah. My firm is Windsor Advisory Group. So you can look that up with a website. I'm Jon, Jon. So my bio's on the website, all the contact info is right there.
Awesome. Jon, thank you so much for being with me. I know you and I will have much work to do together on and off air. So thanks again for all your time today.
Awesome. Thank you.
To all our listeners, thanks so much for listening to Succession Stories. You can subscribe wherever you listen, your favorite podcast player, and find us on YouTube. Thanks so much. Tune in next time for more insights from transition to transaction.